as I said.
You're tuned into the hottest paranormal life show on UFOs, cryptids, unsolved mysteries, megalithic structures, extraterrestrials, interdimensional portals, time skips, and more. Don't change that here, because now you are leaving the mainstream and entering into the fringe.
Greetings, followers. It is I, your host, Cardinal Sin, and welcome to episode number 21, the Timothy Green Beckley Memorial Roundtable. And without any further ado, I would like to introduce our panel. So we will bring them on. And we have Alan Benz. Hello there.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. We have Micah Hanks. Good to see you, my friend.
Always good to be here, brother.
We have Walter Bosley. Thank
Hello
you for
there.
attending. And we have
Thanks for
Dina
having me.
Regine.
Hi,
How are
everybody.
you?
I'm doing good. How is everybody?
We have Mr. Timothy Swartz. Greetings, sir.
Hi, how are you?
Good. We have Marc Brinkerhoff. Glad that you could make it. And we have
I'm
Ed Biebel.
Ed Biebel.
Greetings, sir.
Thank you.
Can you hear us and see us and everything?
Yep, I see Alan there, and trying to recognize some of the other people. It's so pictures are so small, it makes it difficult for me to see them.
Well,
But,
let me
I can
take
see
off
everybody.
let me take off the banner, and then everyone's names will pop up for you.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, okay. I recognize everybody now.
And we have a few people in the chat. And I think the best thing to do here is just to dive on in and let the stories go forth. So whoever would like to begin, please, the floor is yours.
Well,
Nobody
I'm
wants to
gonna
talk on
begin.
top of everybody else.
No one wants to go first.
I didn't know what you wanted to do.
I'm gonna go from here to get.
I'll jump in because
Okay.
many of you knew him better than I did personally. And I probably am like a lot of people watching this, where I initially came to learn about Tim Beckley through his, articles in UFO magazines, and then the late 80s, early 90s, those great books. And I got to say this, and I mean this in the best way possible, seriously. Tim Beckley's books that I remember first getting introduced to 30, 35 years ago, whatever, they were and are the gateway drug into really great stuff that I had been fascinated with for decades now. And I mean, they really were. Whether down the road everything in them turned out to be accurate or true, it doesn't matter. Tim's stuff was all about presenting the idea to you. And I'm personally a great believer, particularly after a few years of researching into stuff, I'm a great believer in the nugget of truth theory, right? And I still go to Tim's books because, and by extension, Tim Swartz too, because you were part of some of that for me. I still go to his books because there's so many great, fascinating things in there that can lead you to some pretty serious and seriously interesting mysteries and phenomena and such. So, that was, and I finally got acquainted with him when I think I did his show once or twice, and that was pretty cool. So for me, he's somebody who was kind of an icon in his own way for decades.
Cool.
It was great. I went to the funeral or wake, and it was great actually, but sad. Not a lot of people came. I expected more people, but his family was there, and they're all beautiful people. some of the friends of his that were the artists. Carol Ann Rodriguez was there, and one of the artists didn't know he had passed Cindy Biebel, and I guess we'll try to give her this link when it's done. When your show is finished, I'll send it to her because I didn't have her email at first, and I found it too late.
If you have it now, you can put it into the private chat on the right, and I will send her the link. Or you can email her the link that I sent to you.
That's what I'll do, because I would have to look it up, her phone, her email again. But it was pretty beautiful. And anyone who knows Tim, his energy was there with us. He was being very telepathic with us.
That's very cool.
People are talking, and I'll hear things, and I'll say it to them, and I go, "Well, yeah, okay." You know, I put something in his pocket. They'd say, and I went to the woman. It was his niece. And I said, she goes, "I was going to give him some gum." All right, and I heard him say, "Yeah, peppermint spearmint," like that. I don't know, you mean like peppermint or spearmint gum or something? She goes, the other niece, the daughter of the niece, says, "Oh, he liked fruit flavored gums, all those fruity flavors, fruits." And I said, "Well, I heard peppermint spearmint," and the niece says, "It was peppermint spearmint like gum." So
wow.
he was telling me in his voice, going, "No, it's peppermint spearmint like." So he was there, and I wish more people had shown up, though. It would have been great.
Sure.
I didn't even hear about it.
Say again, Dina?
There was a lot of, I didn't even hear about it because I had put out to a couple of people, let me know if something was going on, and I didn't get to find out about it.
Are you by any chance a rock and roller?
I am.
You seem
I'm
to
not from the UFO circle of Tim. I'm from
the other side.
Yeah, I'm from the other side, yeah.
So to speak. But I can see that you have some pretty nifty stuff there in the background.
Yeah, yes.
I'm a bit of a rock and roller myself, as is our friend Micah Hanks, and for all I know, everybody else on the panel. But I grew up in the punk rock school of art.
Okay.
And inherited perfect pitch from my dad, who is an internationally renowned composer and violinist. And I just somehow intuited music theory, and I listened to the Beatles and stuff when I was a kid, and had the great luck to play with extremely proficient musicians in all the bands that I was in. So they ended up being, not necessarily. I guess the first few bands were punk rock or hardcore, but after that, it became sort of post-punk college rock type stuff.
Yeah, Tim was, very music-oriented. I mean, I met him through an ad in the Village Voice, and I was still living with my parents at the time, and it was for a photographer, and I was doing that as well as music. So I answered the ad, and I went down, and it was at a loft on 14th Street. And there was some sort of a witches' coven meeting going on when I got there. And I remember, I was like 16, 17 at the time. And I get to the door, and I look in, and, I just came in, I lived in the projects in Astoria. Mm-hmm. So this was not quite familiar territory for me. And I stood at the door, and I thought, do I go in? Who are these people? And will I ever leave? And it was, it was a little freaky. But Tim, walked over to the door, and he was like, "Hey, what's up? I'm Tim, ba, ba, ba." And I just immediately, we hit it off. And from that point forward, Tim and I did a lot together because he was running quite a few rock magazines, classic rock magazines, specialty, he would do a whole issue on Peter Frampton or a whole issue on Kiss and everything. He hired me as a photographer to shoot half the bands. He kind of, without Tim, a lot of the good things that happened in my life with my writing and my photography and also my own personal music, he opened up a lot of doors for me and just turned me on to possibilities at a really young age that I had, I wasn't really aware of. He was in a lot of ways a mentor and a big brother, and he was always there. and literally always there, because when I finally moved into Manhattan, he lived literally from the 70s till he's passed 2 blocks away on my
Wow.
block. So, Tim has always been right there.
I imagine the stories you could tell, huh?
Well, there's nothing particularly outrageous because, I kind of thought, I know, like, when you watch Tim walk down the block, he always looked like a character. Like, you couldn't, like, one day he'd walk out, he'd look like, a white pimp, with his pastel colors and the walking stick and his hair and everything. But,
and in New York, that's just how everybody dresses, right?
Exactly. As Joe Pesci would say, you blend. But
Right.
he was, but as a person, he was very grounded and very down to earth. There was nothing particularly outrageous, at least in my opinion, about him. He was just a really good friend, a really good guy. You could talk to him about boyfriend problems, and and he'll tell you about flying saucers. It all, it just. So he was, I always very grounded for me. Like, I didn't, I know a lot of people met him and thought he was this outrageous character and everything. I never thought that about him. I just thought he was just him.
Right. That's the way I understand a lot of people sort of thought of him as. It's just Tim. And speaking of Tim, Tim Swartz has offered up as our giveaway for the evening, UFO Repeaters, The Camera Never Lies, which was one of Tim's favorites. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Tim?
Yeah, that was one of Tim's favorite books that we put together. And it when he refers to UFO repeaters, this is somebody, well, kind of like Marc, that has had continuous UFO experience throughout their life.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the aspects of this book is that a lot of these people, and I should mention that Marc is featured predominantly in this book, is that they're able to take a lot of photographs as well of the UFOs and experiences. So we have people featured in it like Marc Brinkerhoff, Stella Lansing, Paul Villip, people like that. And it's a pretty good sized book. I forgot now how many pages that we have. Almost 300 pages here. So there's a little something for everybody in this book.
Cool. And I also have sorry, kind of doing 5 things at once here, not getting any of them done.
There's no way to put photos in the chat. Was there?
No, actually there is. It was one thing I was just about to do. Things like this, for example.
With Wally.
Admiral Beckley. But if you would like to put photos in the chat, you can go down to the little menu bar where it says share. And if you click on share, then it will give you the option of a video file or to share your screen. And if you have something on your screen you'd like to share, you can simply use that.
Let me see if I could find that picture, because I have 2 pictures of him from the early 70s that are sweet.
And I may have those as well.
The 2 that I posted, did you on my Facebook when I wrote that long story about Tim?
Are you asking me if I got those?
I didn't send you the pictures, but I had them on my Facebook post. Let me just hold on. Let me see if I can find them.
And while we're waiting on that, Micah, why don't you give us a little rundown on your interactions with Mr. UFO and how you came to know him and love him?
Well, yeah, I certainly did know him and love him. And yet, strangely, I think Tim and I, we corresponded for the better part of 15 years, and we never met, but we always had this standing plan to have some really good Indian food. He says, I know all the good places, so when you get up here, you got to come do this. Now, how I came to meet him was really interesting because, I worked in radio many years ago. And at the time, I'd been producing Joshua P. Warren's program, Speaking of Strange. And we loved it because even though I worked full-time throughout the week, we would all go back to work on Saturday nights because we had a full 3-hour block, to devote to all the sort of stuff that we enjoyed. And we would take live calls, and, UFO reports would often come in. In fact, some of the best I've ever heard still, we logged in those days, people calling in, military encounters, this sort of thing. And, Joshua had been, I think, at a film festival, and he had said, I was sitting at a bar having dinner, and there's this guy, and Josh had been promoting like a film that he had done. And he says, there's this guy that's sitting right next to me and everything. And he just kind of strikes up a conversation. They had no idea about their mutual interest in UFOs. They were both there doing film. And I think that rather than Mr. UFO in this instance, he had been going by Mr. Creepo, his other moniker. And so many years later, of course, Josh had stayed in touch with Tim, and he had said, listen, there's this guy you should introduce yourself to and get to know this fellow. And that's exactly how it happened. He says, trust me, just email him, just introduce yourself. You guys should get to know each other. And so, lo and behold, I did. I emailed him, and I said I'd like to, subscribe to the some of the newsletters that you put out. Which again, this was back in the day, not that long ago, when actual physical print newsletters,
print media, yeah.
Yeah,
I happen to have one of his
the Bizarre Bazaar, or is it the conspiracy?
This is for a conference.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna make myself big here so that y'all can see it.
Let's have a look at that.
And there I am. So this is for the Pikes Peak UFO and New Age Expo. With the keynote speaker, Bud Hopkins. And, maybe that's a little more familiar. I'm not sure if Tim can tell us if that's, one of Tim's regular things, the UFO review. But it includes the spring book catalog. So, yes, it must be.
That's one of his older publications.
Yeah. Well, I thought we'd kind of start from the older days, the younger days, and work our way forward. But boy, did he put out a lot of books. And Tim, you mentioned there's even an advertisement here for Mark Davenport and Leah Haley.
Yeah,
which is kind of cool. And Tim, maybe you can go ahead and give us an idea of some of his early days and his appearances on Long John Nebel and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tim always liked to say that he got into the UFO field when he was barely a toddler. But actually, he was around 13, 14, 15 years old when he first got into it. And he actually started publishing one of his first newsletters by using what was the name of it? It's not maybe a mimeograph machine. Mm-hmm. I'm sure those of us who are old enough remember.
I remember those.
They used
cranking
to
those out.
Yeah, that's it exactly. And they had that great chemical smell that but also if you didn't do them right, they'd really mess up your publishing.
They'd get you high. Yeah.
But at that time in the early 60s, the UFO field was still rather new. You through the 50s, you had like the first contactee movements. but a lot of people who were interested in the subject of UFOs tended to be a little bit older. So by the early 1960s, you had this newer, younger generation coming in. So you had people like Tim Beckley, Gene Steinberg, people like that who were just getting into it. And Tim actually managed to get an interview with a local newspaper there in New Brunswick. And from there, he was invited to go on local radio programs, and this eventually led to him being a frequent guest on the Long John Nebel show, which I think at that time was being broadcast from WOR in New York. And this was a clear channel station, 50,000 watts. So you could hear it up and down, the eastern seaboard, and probably as far probably as far west as Indiana. And so this the picture you're showing here, this is a young Beckley. I mean, he, maybe 16, 17 years old, something like that. And he's looking at a picture. This is a painting of George Adamski's Venusian Orthon. But unfortunately, I don't remember where this
rather androgynous looking character.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. The all of the early extraterrestrials with the contactee movement were very beautiful. Hard to tell, I suppose, between the men or women, though people like Adamski said that they could tell. But they all had that very long hair and tall and graceful looking, and and that was one of the things about Beckley, is that he loved the contactees. He really embraced kind of the, I don't want to say crazy is not the word, but the kind of like the
loony side,
the fringe element.
There you go.
Of the UFO field.
That's why we're called into the fringe.
And and he loved the people. People like Adamski and Howard Menger and people like that. To him, that's what made the field really interesting. I mean, sure, you have the lights in the sky, and things like that, but it was these people who said that they actually rode on a flying saucer to Venus, and were given a dog by a friendly Martian king. Those were the stories that Beckley really loved and loved to write about. Now, of course, a lot of people have criticized him over the years, saying that he didn't have there wasn't a UFO theory that he didn't embrace, which really it wasn't true. But he was willing to give everybody the benefit of the doubt,
sort of a mass appeal.
Yes, yeah, very much so. He wasn't going to go and say, well, your story is just too crazy to publish, or to even considered. I mean, he was the type of guy that he wanted to hear it all from everybody. So that's I think that's one of the things that really made Tim stand out among a lot of the other UFO researchers, and that was also one of the reasons that some of the other researchers tended to not be that fond of him.
Well, he definitely seemed to be a bit of an irreverent sort of guy.
Oh yeah, very much so. But that's what made Tim. But he also was interested in practically everything when it came to the paranormal. I mean, he had Mark, you'll have to remind me of the name, the occult society that he had in New York.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah,
I went to that once to see what it was. Yeah.
Right. Well,
is this Wally Emlark's?
Yes.
Yeah. That's the place on 14th Street where I met him.
Right. So there really wasn't anything that when it came to the world of the weird that he wasn't interested in, which is I think one of the reasons that we got along so well, because I'm very much the same way. I find it all very compelling and love to hear the stories from everybody. I'm not nearly quite as
open-minded, broad-minded.
That you showed a picture there of Tim and his
his irreverence,
his tail, and that's only Tim could pull something like that off, and that's a picture of Tim at Loch Ness.
Yeah, and this is the dapper Mr. UFO.
Yes, the dapper Mr. Beckley.
Yeah,
he loved outfits like that, and going back to earlier, you were talking about he's interested in music. Tim had this great ability to be able to get backstage practically at any venue. He just had that schmoozing ability to get his way in, and then plus. A lot of musicians have an interest in rock and roll and the occult.
A lot of musicians had UFO experiences, it turned out.
Right.
Most famously, John Lennon, Jimi Hendrix, I believe.
Yes.
You can probably speak to that better than I can.
Well, Tim put out, and it's still available on Amazon, an entire book on these cases called UFOs Among the Stars. And like you said, you had John Lennon, Jimi Hendrix. There's, and of course, Muhammad Ali was a big believer in UFOs because, he had several experiences of his own. And there is a picture. And unfortunately, I couldn't find it in my files to send it to you. But there's a picture of Tim with Muhammad Ali as they were looking over some sketches that Muhammad Ali had made of one of his UFO experiences.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
But that's all I remember was hearing about it. I do want to go ahead and go around the roundtable here. Alan, do you feel comfortable telling us some of the wild and woolly tales that you know? You'll have to unmute yourself, of course. There you go.
There we go. Coming through?
Yep.
Okay.
5 by 5.
What I'll do is I will. Good. So for another program based here in Arizona, they asked me to write up a little thing for their program. So I did, and being the lazy type, I'm going to just read to you what I wrote for them. Yeah. There, I put down here. Tim Beckley was a Renaissance man. He was an author, an editor, a publisher, an interviewer, an investigator, a discoverer of talent, and a manager of rock and roll bands. Tim knew how to hustle and to promote both himself and his band, and also the UFO topic. He knew many of the greats of ufology: John Keel, Gray Barker, Donald Kehoe, Jim Moseley, Albert Bender, to name a few. He was one of the few remaining people of that particular era. Tim, in my opinion, was steeped in old school tabloid ufology. He was a man who was not afraid to tackle topics of a controversial nature, such as Branton reports on Dulce or the Lacerda files. He was one of a kind. He was extravagant. For example, in 2010, he came at his own expense and uncompensated to participate in a mini conference that was being held at a resort in Oro Valley, which is a suburb north of Tucson. And while I was here, he bought dinners for attendees out of his own pocket on several occasions. On subsequent trips to Arizona, over a 3 year period, he interviewed involved in the UFO subject. In my opinion, Timothy Green Beckley was the man, the myth, the legend.
Absolutely.
There. Yeah, and what Ed, when he gets back on, he was at that conference that we had here just north of Tucson there, and it was over 3 days with a 3-bedroom penthouse up at a timeshare in Oro Valley. And I think altogether we had about 40 people there. And since we didn't have any expense, the attendees didn't have any expense. So they got to hear Tim Beckley, about 9 other people over 3 days. And of course, other than the cost of driving your vehicle from wherever you came from to the conference and interact personally with these people over
contactees.
a 3-day period.
Mm-hmm.
No, from all sorts. I mean, some people had been people researchers.
I see.
It was mixed bag, and a lot of them, or most of them, in fact, were from the Tucson metro area there, but some of them did come from as far north as Sedona. So it was a mix there, and we do have some photographs. I think were put up on Facebook earlier, but if you want, I can send those to whoever would like them, or they can go to Facebook page.
If you like, Alan, if you like, you can navigate yourself to your Facebook page and get to the page that has the photos or whatever it is you want to show, and then just hit the share button on the bottom of the menu bar, and it'll give you the option to share those photos. Just like I'm doing here with the dapper Mr. UFO. So thanks for that.
Good enough. I'll mute off and see if I can pull that stuff for everybody.
Good deal. And Mark, let's go ahead and mine some information from you about Tim and his life and times and works. The table is yours, my friend.
Thank you so much. Thanks, an honor being here with everybody too.
It's an honor having you on.
Thank you. I met Tim in 1975 in New York at one of those lecture places he started, and it was a medley of metaphysical teachings and things. So that's where I first met him. Didn't really get to talk to him too much. Then in 1976, I came to New York to one of his UFO type of experiences that he put on. And that was a conference. And that's where I met Stella Lansing for the first time, got to be good friends with her. I met Betty Hill in 1976 in Peekskill, New York, too. We became good friends. Good buddies with Betty. And Phyllis and I, my wife Phyllis, we would go visit Betty, too. And we had some experiences for a week. I'm
going to have to hit you up later about that.
Oh, Stella had some great stories. When I first met her, I had not met Phyllis yet. It was 1976. Phyllis and I met through Tim Beckley in 1978. I came to New York to be interviewed by Spielberg's people for a movie he was creating about a little boy going to meet with an alien that was benevolent. So they asked Tim Beckley from California, where is anybody that you know that might have been in contact with an extraterrestrial at a young age that was friendly? And he said, only person I know is upstate New York. That was me. So they said, can we call that person? So they did. I came to New York to meet with them, gave them most of my information, actually, and talked with them. They tape recorded me. Had photographs and illustrations. This is Phyllis and I out of body on the ships in higher self, oversoul forms.
Oh, wow.
So there's
Did you do that?
Yeah, these are my illustrations.
Those are beautiful.
This is Ashtar, the real Ashtar.
There you go.
Ashtar you see on other books somewhere else.
That's beautiful.
I physically met him on a ship I was teleported on. He's over 7 feet tall, and he's very loving and benevolent. So now people.
I would hope so. I wouldn't want to be on his bad side.
Now there's people saying bad things about him. Saying, "Oh, he's a demon." This is untrue. This is not true. We call it the fake ancient news. This is when you go out of body with me. You'll see me as this person here. Whoops, sorry. I'm in reverse on this screen.
Right.
One out here, right? Now.
The one on the
yeah,
on the left,
my screen is totally reversed, so I'm having trouble with it.
Yeah,
so that's me out of body. And if everybody heard about the voice from 1977 over the Southern New England TV sets, that's Asteron.
Mm-hmm.
With the intergalactic mission. That's why I took the name for our website. They held it off for us, intergalacticmission.com. We're part of that. I'm not a human soul. I'm an extraterrestrial here. Walk-in came into this body. So
I see.
They can research that on my internet, Facebook or whatever,
cool
websites. If you just go by or about Mark. I don't want to get into that here, but it's today. I want to tell everybody what happened today. In New York, you have to move your car every hour and a half. Oh, yeah, we did a YouTube. Phyllis and I, Phyllis created this YouTube of me talking with Tim because I tuned in to him through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, we know lucid remote viewing. I'm not channeling.
Right.
I went there. I go out of body. I saw him, and he starts talking to me. So that was an interesting.
It even sounded like Tim.
Isn't that weird? I was just mimicking the way he was talking to me as I hear him. It was
surreal. It really was.
Phyllis told me the same thing. She goes, "That was weird. It really kind of sounds like you're talking like Tim." But I was really trying to be the inflection of Tim when he was saying it. Well, there you go. That's
you
it,
succeeded.
It was funny. I was laughing, but then I got very choked up too because my heart energy felt the missing love. No, because we've always known he's there. We can talk to him or call him. I was always. Phyllis and I were trying to get to visit with him, go take him to dinner. We'll come down to you. He was saying, I don't feel good. This is the last couple of years. Last time we saw him was a Pine Bush UFO experiences up in Pine Bush, New York. It was a couple of years back. But today, I was parking the car. We have to double park and wait for the machine to sweep the road and go park and sit in the car for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Oh, they ticket you.
That's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. So this is 8:30 in the morning. So exactly around 9:21, because I have a clock on the car, I was outside the car putting something into my trunk because I cleaned some stuff off, right? We know this stuff in New York. And I'm in by the trunk, and I hear telepathically, because my crew and friends send messages, and they say when they're in the area, I hear, "Hi, look up." And I have people on the sidewalk talking. So I look up, there they are, spaceship. 9:21 a.m. by a white sphere.
And is this a physical craft or an astral craft or?
No, it's real. It sits there. They come by. I take photos of them, but I didn't have a camera.
Wow.
I didn't have a camera. I didn't have my binoculars there, but you could see it's not a balloon. It just pops on, sits there. And I said to the guys on the sidewalk talking to Super or Supers or like that, I said, "You see that?" And they go, "Oh." I said, "That's a UFO just popped on right now and saying hi to us." And
So you had multiple witnesses.
Yeah. And I said, "You watch them, you'll see them just start moving off and then they'll fade out and go away."
Mhm.
But guess what, guys? Everybody listening, Tim was on the ship. That was the reason they popped over to say hi, because he had said when in our experience on the YouTube where he was talking, and I was telling him he's wanted to meet Ashtar. He was really strongly wanting to see Ashtar.
Right.
He believed in Ashtar, and that's why we wrote with the book, the different books. I wrote a story about Ashtar in there too, and how I met him. But I've known Ashtar for a long, long time on the ships. So I'll say these ships. There's different ones. But the thing is Tim said he wanted to see him. And I was talking to him and I said, "You'll get to see him. You just go ask the right people. You just don't get taken there. No one comes over to you and says, 'Hey, you want to meet somebody?' No. Everything's free will. You have to ask." So he asked. He said, "The angel people." I thought that was funny when he said angel people. He was forgiven because of his little misdeeds he said he did. He actually said, "I did some things for money, to make money." But he was forgiven because Yehoshua met him, known as Jesus, or this creator. He says, "I know your heart." And he was forgiven. So I do believe Tim once told me he was raised Christian. So it's still in there, even though he might have been playful and everything. Creator knows our hearts. So when I looked up and that UFO was there, I intuitively felt Tim's checking in to say hi to everybody because he knows this is happening. Now, I told Carol Ann Rodriguez, who's the illustrator for most of the books that you've seen, and also Cindy Zwiebel.
Wait a minute. You have an illustrator?
No, Tim. It was Tim's illustrators.
That didn't make sense to me that you would have an illustrator being such an awesome artist.
Well, he's used my Ashtar picture on the back of his book with the Ashtar book that he recently put out. Tim Swartz and Sean Castile. And so he said back about a week or more ago now, he said he wants to meet Ashtar. I knew he would. And then I heard from my other side friends, they said Tim's going to be on one of those ships on Wednesday. Now, that was last Wednesday, the week ago, Wednesday. So he's been acclimated. Carol Ann Rodriguez at the wake asked me, she was teared, and she says, "Just let me know, please. Did Tim get to see Ashtar? Is he on the ships?" I said, "Carol, he's on the ship, and he's got an apartment right now there, and he's slender. He's taller. He doesn't look exactly the way Tim looked on Earth, but he's got reflections of the Tim we know. But he actually has graduated basically by his love of what he really loves, and that space and all that information he was dying to know about. So they took him to places to learn things. So that's what they told me this morning. Tim is on that ship saying hi as his glorified form, let's say, or part of glorified form. Right. So I just want people to know that, because there were people writing to us and asking that, is he okay? Is he on the ship? And yes, he is. So, this is also a space person I know, Filistriana.
Uh-huh.
She's one of the part of the crew that we have.
Is she 7 feet tall as well?
7.5.
Wow.
8 feet, roughly.
I wouldn't want to run into her in a dark alley.
Now, Ashtar will form himself into a 7.5 foot. But when you're on the ship, he's over 8 feet.
And these drawings and paintings that you do make them look rather androgynous. Is that on purpose? Yes,
they are androgynous looking, but just like we got Asteron. Mm-hmm. Asteron's like 10 foot to 12 feet tall sometimes.
My goodness.
But they come through at 7.5 to 8 feet to deal with the people if they're out of body. See how they kind of resemble androgyny, but they're not. This is a guy.
Right.
So they kind of have a look that looks androgynous when you look at them, but that's because they can express all aspects of how they feel and what they are.
Man,
you choose the sex
that's
you want to be.
That's like Star Wars poster quality art, Mark.
You want to see this one?
Who is that?
This is actually Commander Bial Al-Arouk. I know him from the other side. He's a race called Alrin.
He has a tail.
Yep, he's like a cat person. So when you saw that movie Avatar, I was laughing with Phyllis. I said, somebody went somewhere and saw some of these types of people.
Right, right.
They're very nice people. And those
James
guys
Cameron steals from everybody.
Well, we've also got the mantid types.
Oh, yes.
Now this
please show us that.
That's a female, and I'll read you quickly. I got everybody's names because I know them out there. These are benevolent beings. They do not harass anybody and hurt them. Her name is Tinish Evin, and she is a female teacher ambassador with many Space Alliance groups within the Intergalactic Mission. She's a Balion race from Vela and Carina constellation. They always past the star called Marquette. Like we all know that.
Right.
And she works on the second, third, and fourth etheric dimensions of the first plane, which is right here, the first plane. So it's just interesting beings. And James Carman utilized this image kind of in his movie, The Hidden Hand, as a benevolent. But it was my image, but they did an illustration copy of it.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's weird.
I'd like to hop in Dina and allow her to show us a couple of pieces of art or photos, as it may be. And
okay, I have I printed out. This is one of the magazines that Tim put out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Nice printer.
Yeah, it's a cheap little Canon. I just did this while you guys were
That's
talking.
really cool.
Key is to put it on matte paper when you put it on camera.
Right, right.
This is Tim and I back in the 70s when I still had my curly hair.
Wow. That's really cool.
You can see the Aquarian Weekly sitting on the table there.
Everybody's got their permanent waves going.
That's my real hair. I've just murdered my curls recently.
Yeah.
But that's Tim had a perm. That was my natural hair.
Right, right.
And
looking cool as always.
And this was I forget, this was from a magazine. I don't remember which magazine that was from. And this was from another magazine. I'm not sure, but this is Tim and I hanging out somewhere.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah, for a few years, Tim had this kind of little afro thing going on.
Right, right. He was a trendsetter and a fashionable guy.
He used to wear like pastel colored suit jackets, like light blue, pink.
I'm going to run through some photos here, and whoever would like to tell us about the photos, please feel free to jump in as I circulate these through. We have one here.
That's probably one of the last photos of Tim that was taken maybe about 4 or 5 months ago.
Mm-hmm. And then there's this one, which is quite famous, of course. Hawaii and Aspen. And then with John Keel.
Yes, I was close to John Keel. He lived a block or two from us. He used to come to our parties.
Wow.
And Tim came to the parties too, and he was really fun. Every time I'd go out on New York Street heading towards Broadway, because John lived on 85th Street, West Side, I knew I would telepathically, intuitively knew I'd meet up with him. And sure enough, we'd be walking there. He'd come straight like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I'd hear, he's in the restaurant. So I go walk by the restaurant. There he is. I'm waving to him from the window. So we were telepathic. And he always said, we always do this, don't we? I said, yeah, it's fun.
I would have loved to have met John Keel. Anybody on the panel met John Keel?
I met him, a couple times, a number of years ago. But Tim in John's early life, or not early life, in his later life, was probably one of the few people that John could stand.
And I would like to introduce and welcome my good friend Peter Robbins.
Yep. One sec.
And as we scroll through these pictures, anybody, again, please just jump on in.
John Keel was very close to Ingo Swann, like we were here. Very close. Yes. Yeah, Ingo and him were very close. Very cryptozoology and everything, Fortean.
And then we have this one here. Can anyone speak to that?
He always wore scarves.
Yeah, I think that one was taken around Christmas last year.
Okay. And here we have Robert Wise.
Question.
Tim Beckley.
I don't see myself on camera.
Okay. We see you.
That's nice. I don't see any of you guys.
Maybe I will pop you out and you can pop back in.
Okay.
Any better?
Peter.
No.
We see you.
Yeah, we see you just fine.
Great.
Do you have your settings on your computer so that your camera is on in your
Yes.
settings and all that?
Yep.
Okay. Maybe you should exit the studio and hit the link again. That might do it.
Okay. Very good. Where is the exit button?
It says leave studio at the
Right on the bottom, there's a red circle with an X in it.
Got it. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, you know who else had UFO experiences? The Brock Group? The Moody Blues. That's where they got that incredible music coming through, talking about the other side, when in the 1960s.
I didn't know that.
Research it. It's online somewhere, because I've looked it up years and years ago. Because I knew as a kid when I heard their music, I said, oh no, they had encounters. They had something go on. So they were driving in England somewhere in the back road. And a
Got
UFO
better?
landed.
Much. There you are.
Very good. Very good. Thank you very much, Peter, for coming by. And I would like to remind folks in the audience that we have a couple of giveaways today. And the second one is this one from Peter Robbins, which are VHS cases of the UFO experience that are autographed. This one by Stanton Friedman and this one by Eric von Daniken. Peter, is there anything you can tell us about that?
Yes, they're autographed in silver ink made of real silver. Just kidding. In the late 90s, I began working for a multimedia company in Midtown Manhattan. And the first job they gave me was to put together a series of UFO-related lectures drawn from the very large catalog from the Omega conferences that lasted for 10 years and were out of North Haven, Connecticut. And this was at the very end of the video era. I hired an artist to do the work, and once the videos came out, I had each individual, and Stanton and Eric were two of them, sign a few of these sleeves for promotional purposes, and I had a few left, and somebody will end up with them.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much for offering those as our second giveaway, in addition to Tim Swartz, and we really appreciate that.
Wait a minute, you're giving away Tim Swartz?
We are. He's going to be a slave to someone in the chat.
Yes,
No.
my wife is happy to be rid of me.
Peter, we've had everybody on the panel discuss their memories and interactions, how they met Tim. Let's toss to you.
Mark, by the way, it's wonderful to see you, my friend.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you, brother.
Yeah. I either met Tim through Mark or the person that we met through, the late great New York City Police Detective Sergeant Pete Mazzola, head of the Scientific Bureau of Investigation, a UFO organization well ahead of its time, primarily composed of police officers around the country. And at the height of the organization, Mark and I were in the minimum as members if we were civilians, but I think he had close to 900 police officers around the country as members. Anyway, I met Tim, late 70s, and I was a veteran of all of a year or two as far as being a ufologist. And I had been not so much warned away, but a number of my colleagues had the impression that Tim didn't take the subject as seriously as you should. And it wasn't until, I guess, about 1980 or so, maybe 81, we were coming back from a conference in New Jersey, and we both got rides back to New York City with some kind soul. And Tim was just telling us UFO stories. I mean, the guy had been involved since he was 16 years old, and you all know his history as a remarkable publisher. And he totally cracked me up. I mean, I was laughing so hard I could hardly breathe. And by the end of the trip, I thought, blank whatever anybody says about this guy, this is a new friend.
Oh, don't forget, you can curse on this show as much as you want.
Oh, well, fuck what they said. You know, this is a new friend. And we started to hang out. My sister's career, Helen, had taken off like quite a skyrocket as a singer and gold and platinum record award-winning songwriter for the Blue Oyster Cult. And for years, she was a mainstay on the punk scene, playing regular gigs at CBGB's and the Cat Club and Peppermint Lounge and all of the wonderful joints in New York.
I'm so jealous. I would have loved to have seen those.
Yeah. Helen opened for, among other people, all friends, Iggy and Blondie and the Talking Heads and...
Can we assume the Ramones?
The Ramones for sure, several times.
Wow.
And again, most of these were very small venues, and I got to meet all these people. Of course, in hindsight, you don't realize that you're at an extraordinary moment in the history of American popular music. But we used to constantly tease each other. You know, I'd get a review in an art magazine, and she'd get an interview in some, you know, new wave magazine, and, you know, I'm famous this week. Oh, yeah? Well, but it was a real halcyon time. Anyway, Tim often would come to the shows with me, or we'd meet there. And of all of my colleagues, going back to the beginning to right now, certainly Tim and I did more recreational drugs together and got drunker together than anybody that I knew or worked with. And we had a grand time doing it. And I used to spend quite a bit of time at his apartment. It was kind of a New York legend with our rent control laws. And some of you remember it. It was on East 30th Street, just east of Fifth Avenue. And it was a wonderful little hellhole that he had probably for 40 plus years. And in more recent times, the building was bought and sold and bought and sold. And every single apartment in that building was super updated and made into corporate apartments, which landlords live for in New York. It means you've got a client there for 6 months, and when they leave, you can raise the rent. But with Tim, you know, they did not like the fact that they could never raise the rent with him other than, you know, a tiny percentage every 2 years by law. And
did he have a rent-controlled apartment?
A very rent-controlled apartment.
Yeah.
And I think in part it was held together by the walls of books stacked horizontally.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have a warehouse, and this was way before the era of print on demand.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it was a great place to hang and get stoned. He'd come down to my place in Chinatown. We ate more Indian dinners together. That was our favorite. And I grew, that was the first neighborhood I ever remembered in my life. My grandparents lived a few blocks from there. And over the years, what had been a more or less sedate middle-class neighborhood became Little India. So we only had about, 18 or 25 different restaurants to choose from in the zone. And in later years, we had a couple of favorites down in the East Village. I remember once Helen and I were roommates also for many years in New York and shared a number of apartments. And we had at one point a huge apartment on West 57th Street, as big as the square footage of the house I live in, about 1,500 square feet, which for New York City apartments, ridiculous.
Wow. Yeah.
With a view of the southwest corner of Central Park. It was an amazing couple of years. But we had some sensational parties there. And what I remember, Tim was, of course, coming, because what would a party be without him?
Right.
And he and Helen adored each other. And it was right at that moment where LED light technology had kind of exploded in the novelty scene. Tiny little lights that would go like that. And I opened the door, the bell rang, and there's Tim, dressed very nicely in black, as any good New Yorker should, wearing large sunglasses with little red LED lights going back and forth across the top. Just one of those joyous little memories. His conferences, as anybody that attended them or spoke at them knows, most of them were in the Southwest, always first-class lineups of speakers, and famed for the wildest parties after the fact, sometimes wildly out of control. One that was a legend that I missed, unfortunately, was a very drunk Bill Cooper and a probably quite drunk Eric Beckjord getting in each other's faces and ending up punching each other out on the floor with people trying to pull them off. One friend of mine who kind of grabbed Bill at the wrong spot realized he was strapped. He had a major piece of hardware under his sports jacket and a shoulder holster. So
he was packing, as they say.
He backed off and decided let them fight this out as they wish. It was very rough for Tim and for everybody that loved him to find out about his diagnosis when he learned that he had major, heart problems and had to get a pacemaker. He had to slow down or he just would have died then, and slowed down incredibly. At one point, I remember really just a few years ago, meeting him on 30th Street, and we decided to go to one of those restaurants in the West 20s, East 20s, again, just a few blocks from him. Normally it would have been maybe a 10-minute walk, and it was more like a 30-minute walk. And just for me, understanding on a more profound level that his health had become much more fragile. Not that it stopped him completely from being the old Tim, but a slower version.
Right.
In 2008, UFO Magazine hired him to do an interview with me. And being hardcore businessmen, we settled on a salary of a huge Indian dinner and all of the Chinese beer we could drink, which we had sent up to his apartment. And he started to ask me questions. And he very quickly turned it to my sister's story, her abduction, her memories, how it impacted on my life as an artist, who then became obsessed with this subject to such a degree that career totally went off the rails. And it's quite a good interview. And he had a number of family photos that I gave him and publicity shots of Helen and the like. And the layout was very good. After Tim died, just recently, I contacted Nancy Burns, who was then, and I guess still is, the editor-in-chief of UFO Magazine, to find out if she could send me a PDF of it. And we started to just reminisce a little bit in email. And she nailed it. She said, Tim was the Hunter S. Thompson of ufology. And I thought, fuck, perfect. He was. And I learned.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. I learned that he had died without exaggerating, 30 minutes before I was going on the air live on that Monday night some weeks ago to do an interview with Cheryl Costa and Linda Miller Costa on their new book on the extraordinary desk reference, probably the largest compiling of UFO statistics ever published for the public. And I really had to just reflect back on a lot of what I remembered from auditing acting classes for decades to just keep it together. I was in shock. I had just enough time to post my own brief announcement in social media that this terrible thing had happened.
I think that may be how I found out because of your post.
And we did our 2 hours. The last half hour, I don't really remember. It's one of those times where you're very glad that you have good work habits and you prepared your questions. And it ended. I got off and just burst into tears.
Oh my gosh.
Thinking, I'd never see this guy again. It's the way it is, but I miss him terribly. But I think of all of the fun we had over the years and the great memories and all he accomplished. He covered bases that nobody else did in terms of so much of the esoterica and legends and myth and outrageous side stories that are always in the periphery of ufology, but that mainstream ufology prefers not to deal with. And I understand that. When I got involved, not by choice, but it just happened, I didn't know there was such a thing as ufology. And within a few years, I certainly did. And the profile of a ufologist at that time, middle-aged white guy, although that's probably pretty accurate now too overall.
Yeah.
But it's like they went to nerd school, every single one of them. They were unconscious dressers. They all wore sports jackets from the 50s with lapels that could kill you, polyester shirts, very nasty looking ties, and always a giant fucking flying saucer pin in the lapel.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is not the model I'm going to follow. But the reason I say it even as a backstory is that if you were in the work, you were already an outsider. And if somebody said, oh, you're a ufologist, I don't know if the word existed then, but you're seriously involved in the study of flying saucers and you're a grown man or a woman, you knew it was just code for, I can't take you seriously.
Right.
And I think it's one of the reasons that Tim's publishing ventures never became mainstream. At the same time, it really almost didn't matter. He was a one-man army of self-promotion. His first magazine, I think he probably published in high school, Mimeographed.
His fanzine?
It was an attempt at a serious first go at a UFO magazine. If it weren't for Tim, I never would have met people who are kind of legends in the work now, like Jim Moseley. I got to spend time and get to know John Keel, who for a lot of us is just a legend. I remember seeing a very poignant photo of Tim. I should have saved it when I found it. He couldn't have been more than 17, very serious looking, in a serious teenager's suit and tie, standing at a podium, giving a talk. When we finally started to really get to know each other, one of the things that made me realize why I felt so close to him was we got into this in part for the same reason. Tim had a number of experiences growing up that, brought him into the world of the paranormal. But both of our sisters had UFO-related experiences. And, your interest is more than intellectual. It's what the hell happened to my sister.
Yeah.
So, that's some of it for me. I don't really know what else to say, except that, his memory will live on, God knows. We will always smile when we think of him. I'm angry at the universe that he had to die, and alone in his apartment. I haven't lived in the city for some years, but was down there regularly, and saw him almost every time I was down. But you always wish you could have spent more time with people that you loved, after they go. But I certainly had my share, and I'm so glad, through Marc, that I got to be somebody in his life too.
And it's safe to say that you were lifelong friends with Tim.
Yep. I'd say so. Yeah, we had a lot of parties, and Peter would come, Helen would come, and we had John here, and Tim would come, Carol Ann Rodriguez. A lot of fun. And our old friend Bryce Bond, Peter, remember Bryce?
Of course.
And Bryce passed on in 1992.
Yeah.
And I was his cameraman for his TV show, Dimensions of Parapsychology, with Bryce Bond back in the 70s.
He was so classy. I mean, he was really quite the gentleman.
We're talking Tim or Bryce? Because Bryce was in a lot of shows with Tim. He put on shows.
Marc, you remind me. Helen, of course, loved you and Phyllis. She felt closer to you than, I don't know anybody she felt closer to in the whole field, that brought us together. And you remember that amazing memorial we had for her the month after she died in the basement of the old, very old synagogue that was now a community center down on the Lower East Side. One of my most poignant memories, aside from more than 200 people showed up for that. Obviously, old friends, family, a lot of music industry people, lots of musicians, lots of fans, artists, a good complement of Hell's Angels who held her in high respect, and of course, Tim. And, especially with guys, you get to know each other on a certain level. And if it's emotional, it's usually fun emotional. But I remember him sitting there sobbing, and I knew that, he loved her and she loved him, but it wasn't until that moment I realized how devastated he was, along with us and so many other people that loved Helen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like Phyllis and I consider you brothers and sisters ever since we met that first time.
Ditto.
And Tim, I met him in 1975 and 76 when I really got to know him, with Harold Salkin, with Global Communications Network. Remember that? Global Communications. So they've been part of our family. Even though we don't get to see each other all the time, we talked, we emailed. And he was an advocate for me, even though he didn't always believe all my story. He knew I was getting information or having UFO experiences.
Yes.
So, I know that. We used to joke about it. And he says, Marc, I believe that. But it's true. He used to come up skywatching with me in 1977 to Mahopac, New York, and wait and see things, him and Harold Salkin. So it's been a long time, many years.
Again, I got to meet you through Pete.
Right.
His backstory was this guy keeps leasing. Pete was the first person I knew, maybe you too, who had a phone machine, one of these amazingly advanced pieces of technology, and two separate lines in the house. Who had two phone lines? One, his regular family phone, and the other 24/7 dedicated for cops and anybody else around the country to call in UFO-related sightings and things.
Oh, wow.
And he said, there's this guy that keeps leaving me messages who, there's going to be a sighting at this point, at this time, 3 days from now. Who believes shit like that?
Right.
And at a certain point, he said, I finally called him on it. I said, I'm going with you. And he went. And there it was. And hello, Marc.
We all met March 3rd, 1979, me and Pete and Phyllis. And then Peter, you came later, just a little later after that. I think within a couple of months. At
Marc,
least.
That's an incredible memory. You have the actual day and date.
Well, it's the date that I met Phyllis at Tim Beckley's, March 3rd.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. Well,
so
that would do it.
I do want to kind of take a bit of a left turn here and see maybe if Tim can address these questions that I have. One about how he was a stringer for the National Enquirer, and also about his career as a reporter and a film reviewer in the adult film industry. Someone once wrote up a hit piece for their blog about Tim and what he did for adult magazines, thinking this was some sort of big revelation that would ruin him as a UFO researcher. And we could only laugh about this because this was never a secret, nor was it meant to be.
Yeah, Tim was always proud that he could string for the National Enquirer and send them UFO stories that they would actually print. Now, of course, this was before they turned into basically just a celebrity rag.
Yeah.
One of the things that Tim always told me about the Enquirer is that they required all kinds of vetting and verifications on the stories that he would send them. He couldn't just, go and write a story and send it to them and they would publish it. No, he had to have, names, addresses, signed agreements that the stories that he said were true. They required that he would record the interviews as well. So, a lot of people had the impression at that time that the Enquirer was, basically just this rag that would print, nothing but, but lies and, unverified stories. But from Tim's recollections, that wasn't true. So, I don't know how it is now, but at that time when Tim was writing for them, the information that they got from Tim, it had to be, checked, double checked, triple checked before they would even consider printing his stories.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the aspects of Tim's life, and everyone here who knows Tim knows that he was also wrote quite a bit for adult magazines, especially the adult film industry. He was a reviewer for Hustler magazine, and I think that he was also an associate editor for a magazine called Cinema Film Review. I'm not sure exactly what its name was, but he also wrote for other adult magazines as well. And I think that some people who didn't realize that this was an aspect of Tim's life thought that this was some deep dark secret. And maybe about 10 years ago, I think is what it was, somebody who, for whatever reason, had it in for Tim, wrote this hit piece, as I call it, on this blog with this incredible revelation in the porn industry, and made adult films and wrote about them and things like that. and we just we had to laugh about this because if this was their big revelation, this was the worst kept secret around, because not only did Tim write about this kind of stuff, but so needs to get funding to do his own adult movie called Driller, which was a takeoff on Thriller, the Michael Jackson video, and this was financed by the Dark Brothers. And Tim actually managed to get it shot on 35 millimeter film. This wasn't just a video quickie. Of course, at the time that this movie was made, it was right at that transition between porn movies being shot on film and then going to video. But they were usually shot on 16 millimeter, but Tim managed to get a shot on 35 millimeter, and the movie is, I mean, it's just really well done. It actually it has a plot and some just
a beginning, a middle, and end. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
A beginning, a middle, and end.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And the special effects are really good. Now, I'm not sure if Tim appeared in it. If he did appear in it, he wore a mask, and I don't think that there were any hardcore scenes featuring him.
Right.
But I don't know how well the film actually did. I know that it played on Times Square for a long time. It would go from one theater to another. Of course, this was at a time when Times Square was filled with movie theaters and hadn't become Disneyfied yet.
Right.
Tim told me, though, that the Dark Brothers also distributed the film and that he saw practically nothing from the profits. So, but unfortunately, that's the way distributors are. They not only in movies, but magazines, things like that. They take the profits and say that, well, you haven't sold anything, and then they disappear. But later on, around 1999, 2000, Tim decided that he wanted to get back into making movies again. This was around the time when video cameras had become cheaper, good quality. Video cameras were available to the independent market. So he wanted to get into it again. And since my career as well had been in television production, he asked me if we could make some films that would be direct video. And so we made 3 movies. We made The Curse of Ed Wood, Skin Eating Jungle Vampires, which are showing there, which there's Tim featured predominantly in the middle of the erupting volcano.
Of course.
And then Sandy Hook Lingerie Party Massacre.
And then we have barely legal vampires.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Well, that I had decided, when we made.
Oh, sorry. So I apologize. Barely legal lesbian vampires. The Curse of Ed Wood.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Let's find out about that.
Well, yeah, I was the one who came up with that title, because at the time the term barely legal was very hot, and it was you'd see it all over the place. So I thought that, well, if we're going to do horror films, let's do horror films like you would see on Cinemax after midnight.
Right.
The kind of the soft core.
Skinemax.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so that's what we went with. We went with this combination of, horror and skin and sex, but not hardcore.
Right.
And we really had a lot of fun making these films, though. I do remember that when we were making The Curse of Ed Wood, we were shooting at a place there in Manhattan called The Dungeon, which was basically an S&M club. And Tim knew the owner of the place. And this guy agreed to shut the place down for a couple of nights so we could film there and use all the equipment that they had there. I mean, just think of a medieval torture chamber. That's what this guy had, in this location. But at one point, Tim had gotten a hold of some huge vampire wings, made out of canvas and wire, and the person could like strap it to their backs, and I mean, it was very impressive. And he became obsessed with getting a shot of this one actress coming out of a coffin with these wings, and coming out of the coffin and unfurling these wings. And we were on this really tight schedule. I mean, just
and I imagine budget.
Oh yeah. And Tim was funding a lot of it. He managed to get funding from some various other sources, but because he was so obsessed with getting this shot, he spent practically the entire night of one night trying to get this shot. And finally, at one point, I took one of the cameras and said, I'm going to have to go and shoot some, all the other scenes that we had, scheduled for the
You
night.
became the second unit director.
Yeah.
Tim
was, I mean, we were supposed
so to speak.
We had two cameras. And they were digital cameras, which in 2000, I mean, those were kind of rare.
Yep.
Unless you were
Were they the kind that were digital, but they still recorded onto tape?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I remember. I had one of those.
Right. And
that was the highest prosumer level you could get.
Exactly. One of the stations that I worked at had digital portable cameras, but these things were you put them on your shoulder, and they weighed a ton. They use tape as well. These cameras, they're actually Sony's, and they were considerably smaller. They didn't have quite the capability as the ultra professional cameras, but they shot really good. I mean, they were broadcast quality cameras. But yeah, I mean, I had to spend the rest of the night shooting all these other scenes that we had scheduled for the night, that because of Tim wanting to get, and that's the way that Tim was. Sometimes he'd get this this idea in his head, and he would become obsessed with it. He had to
get that shot.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that probably in the finished product, it was like maybe 5 seconds.
Yeah.
In a 90-minute movie.
So his other videos were under the Mr. Creepo label, which you helped direct and edit, and it includes The Curse of Ed Wood, The Sandy Hook Lingerie Party Massacre, and Skin Eating Jungle Vampires. These were direct-to-video releases at a time when a lot of independent movie makers were still putting out stuff for video stores. And I'm led to understand that The Curse of Ed Wood and Skin Eating Jungle Vampires can still be found on various streaming services.
Yeah, I know that I saw one of them. I think it was The Curse of Ed Wood on YouTube, one of their buy or rent sections, and Tubi, the streaming channel Tubi, has had both of them a couple of times on their rotations. So to me, it's amazing that these movies that we made back in 2000 are still out there, and people are watching them, and I have no idea why, but are still enjoying them.
Yeah. It sounds like that was a lot of fun.
They were, yeah. Well, and Barely Legal Lesbian Vampires, for whatever reason, was a big hit in Japan. According to one of our first distributors, they sold a bunch of DVDs of it in Japan.
Cool. Now, the movie that you mentioned that was shot on film, presumably could be remastered, into HD and surround sound. Would that be Driller?
Yeah, that would be Driller. I don't know if Tim had the rights to that anymore, or if it was still being owned by the Dark Brothers, or what.
Well, I mean, if they stiffed him on it,
yeah, they did.
They may have run off with the rights, but it would be interesting to find out, just for informational purposes, if the rights were able to be returned, or if they just stole them and somebody could steal them back. And I guess possession being 9/10 of the law, whoever has that film would be in control of whether or not it could be, restruck, a wet gate print, and upgraded to, or remastered rather, to 1080p and surround sound.
Yeah, I had asked him at one time if he knew who had the original master, and at that point he had no idea. He had being Tim. Once the movie was made and it was out there, he was off on some other tangent, and it wasn't until years later that he considered that, hey, maybe I should have made a bigger effort to get a hold of that the original work print.
And while we're with you, Tim, I wanted to go ahead and have you tell us a little bit about Exploring the Bizarre, how you got involved with that, and the whole story.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tim and I have, we've had known each other, for years and years. I think we first met around 1983 when I was working for a television station in Dayton, Ohio, and I had done an interview with J. Allen Hynek. He had come to Dayton to do a speech at the Air Force Museum. And that interview had gone up on the CBS satellite news feed. And apparently one of the stations, CBS stations in New York, had aired that. So Tim managed to track me down, and he wanted a VHS copy if I had one, and maybe a transcript, which, I was able to provide for him. And, we talked and called each other, periodically, from that time. But it wasn't until maybe around 1995 or something like that, that Tim had got a hold of me because he was getting ready to publish UFO Universe magazine, and he was looking for writers who could contribute to it. And I have to say that Tim always paid. He was a publisher that he always paid his writers. I wrote for a number of UFO magazines over the years, and a lot of them, it was like trying to pull teeth to get any money out of them that they promised. Tim always paid, and never complained about it either. He never acted like that. You were asking for the last bits of money for his his mother's funeral, that sort of thing. By that time, I mean, we've been collaborating. We wrote books, magazine articles, that sort of things together, and I was already doing a show with Mike Mott on a network, and we would occasionally have Tim on as a guest. And the owner of this network really liked Tim, and why not? I mean, the guy was great on air, so he offered Tim a show of his own. And so Tim, since I was already on another show, Tim, Tim brought in another friend to do the show, and I can't remember how many episodes that they actually did, but he ended up having a falling out with the owner of this network. So at around the same time, the show that I was doing with Mike Mott we had to end it because Mike had gotten a teaching job and couldn't stay up late anymore to do our show. So we were approached by Tina Marie from Las Vegas, who was just starting her new digital network, the KCOR digital network. And she had both Tim and myself on her show a couple of times, and she asked us if we wanted to do a show on her new network. This was in 2015, and we were like, yeah, great. I mean, we could just have done the shows ourselves without having any guests.
Sure.
I mean, you get us talking, and we we do 2 hours just without even without even thinking about it. But Tim always said that he had been the guest on so many shows over the years that he had decided that maybe it was time to not only to give other people a chance, but he was wanting to ask the questions. He was the one who was wanting to find out what was going on in these various fields. So that's really how the show got started. And I mean, like I said, it was 2015, and I mean, we had our last show a week before he passed away.
Wow.
Yeah, we had on Linda Zimmerman, and he had just come home from the hospital, and in fact, the previous 2 shows before that, he actually was doing it from his hospital room.
Wow.
Yeah. So
how many episodes did you guys do? Do you remember offhand?
Oh my gosh,
give or take, ballpark.
I have no idea. So I mean, let's see,
100, 150.
Oh gosh, more than that. You think about. Let's see here. What would it have been?
Once a week since?
Oh yeah, it was once. It was once a week. I mean, we tried to do it. At least every week. So
we're talking like 1,000
a year.
Yeah, yeah. That's very cool.
Yeah.
I do want to briefly bring in Dina. I understand that you need to be on your way.
Yes, I do. But it was really nice meeting you all and sharing all these memories of Tim. And bid you a farewell from 30th Street.
Where can people find out more about what you do online?
On Instagram, just Dina Regine, and I have Dina Regine Music and Art on Facebook.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thanks very much for being part of the Memorial Roundtable. I really appreciate your being here.
Well, it's nice to see Tim was so loved. I mean, he was an amazing human being.
Absolutely. So, thanks again.
I'll see you guys on either side.
Right. So, thanks again for helping us remember Tim and his life and times. And we will see you later.
Okay. Have a nice night, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right. So I mentioned in the copy that I wrote for this episode that we could stop at 9:00 Central Time, or we could go long, depending on who wanted to, or if anybody wanted to. And we are we have about 20 minutes left until 9. Since the giveaways are from Tim and Peter, I would probably default to your both of you your timetable and whether you need to go at 9:00 sharp or not.
I do. I am backlogged, working on a number of things on deadline, so I'm just glad I was able to participate to some degree in this show, and thank you, Gil, very much for doing it.
Oh, absolutely. It was an imperative, you can't let somebody like Timothy Green Beckley go and not, ruminate on all the things that we've been talking about. Walter, do you have any more to say about Tim?
It's been great sitting here listening to these amazing stories, and I feel like that even though he's a guy that I'm the one here coming from the angle of just the regular schmo out in public that saw Tim's books, read Tim's books, and was aware that I'm just old enough to be aware that he'd been around for decades, and I feel like I've gotten to know him a lot better hearing all you guys talk. And the filmmaking thing, I love that. Being a very micro budget filmmaker myself, a love that I've had since junior high, it's just totally cool to learn that he did those movies. And we live in a time where there's some things. I just think the whole thing makes Tim look like a much more rounded, textured, character of a human being, for his time here. People have a lot of varied interests and stuff, and I just think it makes him look a lot more interesting to me, as a person. And, I'm glad that I got to cross paths with him. It was kind of late in the game. But being on his show, a year or so, whenever it was ago. But like I said, I enjoyed his books, his UFO stuff, his books on. I have the Subterranean Worlds, Inside Earth, and the Smoky God, Inner Earth Mysteries sitting right here on my desk. Mm-hmm. And those were kind of like I said, earlier. Tim Beckley's books they really are the gateway drug to a lot of great stuff, a lot of stuff that now, at least I attempt to, seriously, dive into and have been interested in for years. So again, it's, he's somebody that to me has been kind of an icon in this alternative research world. And I'm very glad to have been part of this. And, like I said, heard all these stories and learn more about him. He'll be missed.
Indeed. And I would like to introduce Albert Rosales. Hello,
Hi,
sir.
guys. Hi. I'm sorry I'm late. It's been a crazy day, but I'm glad I'm here with you guys.
So we've spent the last hour and 43 minutes and 33 seconds talking about Timothy Green Beckley, his lifetimes and work, and now it's your turn.
Well, Tim, I didn't know him personally, but I did go on his radio show a couple times, and he struck me as a genuine guy. He was, he sent me the copy of the book Alien Lives Matter. I contributed a couple of articles, but I didn't expect it. I didn't ask for it. And another thing he did that I wasn't expecting, I never asked for it. He one day, I used to send him cases of encounters and stuff like that. He sent me $100 out of the blue.
Wow.
And I told Tim, no, I didn't ask you for this. I don't want it.
That's more than almost anything I've made as a writer. And I'm a professional writer.
He told me to keep it. So, I didn't. So I did. But that was something I always remember from him. He did that out of the bottom of his heart. Go get yourself
something nice.
Yeah, basically. Go out for dinner or something. And I remember that. And I remember the day that I had heard what happened. I was so shocked. I couldn't believe it. I still haven't really come to terms that he's gone, because he was such a part of the UFO community for years. I'm talking about 30 years ago. I remember I used to read his books when I was a teenager. And that was a long time ago. In the 70s, I started this in the 70s, and he's been before that. I know he was involved in the 60s, and all the UFO newsletters and magazines that he put out were the best, better than they have nowadays, I think. And he will be missed for sure.
Definitely. Absolutely. So at this point, anybody that wants to,
I don't know. I think we may have lost the host of our show.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in. Walter reminded me when he was talking about Tim's legacy as a publisher. For me, there were so many books from so many different traditions and legends and myths, but Tim was instrumental in republishing a number of completely out of print and impossible to find pieces of esoterica, things
Correct.
that are valuable to many of us who just love this kind of background material or are hardcore bibliophiles, and we know we're not going to get an original copy. He also occasionally would do a reprint, like a facsimile reprint. I remember one he did some years ago of one of Donald Kehoe's original paperbacks, and including the graphics on the cover, which I thought were masterful. He also brought one or two works of the respected British UFO writer Jenny Randall's, very prolific, directly to print in America, where she rarely was able to do that and almost always available as an import. He, for all of the lighter, funnier, quirkier stuff about Tim, he was passionate about knowledge, about sharing information. And, now it almost all seems quaint, the world of books, when we are in an age that is increasingly digitized and subtly maneuvering here and there to exclude, include, to not so much discourage people building actual libraries, but why do you need to take up all that space? Everything can go on your your Kindle or your e-reader of some sort. I remember the first time whenever these wonderful devices became available, and I have no problem with. I think whatever can get people to read is great, but for a friend to tell me that he had 1,100 fucking books on this thing that was this big, and I say, well, all right, that is, the aliens are here. That's back engineered technology. Half joking, but only half. Tim was old school like that, and it was always a point of pride with him if a new book came out and I was visiting, inscribed copy, or to send me something in the mail. And again, in this day and age when UFO magazines are pretty much a dinosaur, print magazines, it's hard to explain to people who have been in the work a shorter time how valuable these were to us, and the level of involvement that good publishers had to have. You had to have material on the latest breaking cases, whether it was a monthly or a bi-monthly or, a one-off or twice yearly glossy or something. And Tim didn't miss a beat. Maybe that, one run UFO Universe or whatever was newsprint, but he had everything in there that was going on and great flashbacks to famous cases of the past, that kind of thing. For me, being a pack rat and archivist since I was a kid, I don't have all the back issues of everything he published, but I'm very proud of the collection that I do have. And for me, every one of them is like a perfect little time capsule of the moment that it was published in the world of UFO studies from a popular point of view. They're not intended as works of definitive scholarship. These are popular culture magazines, and he did a great job. I can't think of any one individual that did more in that respect than Timothy Green Beckley.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. I do want to, again, remind folks that we have 2 giveaways tonight. this one from Peter, and another one from Tim, and that one is the UFO Repeaters, The Camera Never Lies, which was one of Tim's favorites. And presumably, Tim, you will inscribe that for our winner.
Sure, if that's what they want.
Great. And I did want to ask one final question about Tim's Man in Black photo. The allegedly only existing photo of a man in black. Can you speak to that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tim was especially proud of that photograph. It was taken in Jersey City, and it was Tim and Jim Mosley. They were going to visit a friend who he and his wife were also investigators, and they had told Tim and Mosley that they had been seeing the traditional man in black, hovering around outside of their apartment for a number of days. So the two decided to drive over to see if they could catch a glimpse of the character, and sure enough, as they were driving by, they saw this kind of short, swarthy looking guy, dark clothes, dark hat, standing in a doorway across the street from their apartment. So Mosley was driving, and Tim grabbed the camera and shot a photograph of this guy as they were driving by. And so they circled the block and came back around, and in that short amount of time, this guy was gone. Now, and Tim also got another shot of a nearby black Cadillac that you don't see that one circulating too often. Now Tim has said over the years that there's no way of knowing whether or not this guy was actually a man in black, or could be he speculated that he could have been, say, like somebody who was just keeping an eye out for the cops. That there could have been like an illegal gambling den, going on in the building that he was standing in the doorway. But at that time, the clothes that this guy was wearing, and this would have been in the I think middle 60s. Pretty much out of date. So, for all intents and purposes, it's a picture of a man in black.
Right. So what I'd like to do now is just get a final word from everyone on the panel, and then we will go ahead and do our giveaways. And we'll start with Albert. Is there any final words you'd like to make?
Well, like Peter was saying, the old style UFO magazines like Saga, UFO Report, UFO Universe, they were so important back then. I mean, right now you try to buy one of those at eBay and there's like 15 to 20 bucks a piece. It's ridiculous. Yeah. You can't get them anywhere. But Tim was a big part of those magazines. I remember his articles.
Like really Argosy. Was Argosy one of those?
Argosy was one of them. Yeah, that's before Saga UFO Report magazine. That was my favorite. Then UFO Universe, and then now you can't get anything like that. Maybe in other countries that do have magazines. Here in the U.S. not that much, but in Spain I know there's 3 or 4 good magazines. But I will always remember Tim. I remember the first time I communicated with him. I was, I go, wow, finally get to talk to Beckley. Well, see you later, my friend. Like I said, now he knows all the secrets.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Mark, any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Just that he was a wonder. He was just an amazing man. We all love him. I know we're going to see him if you go out of body, but out of body travel. but there's nothing. There's really no words, because the day when I met him, I was like, "This is that guy. This is that guy." I have the magazines he's in. He writes about, and he was just a wonderful friend, and we're all gonna miss him. And I know he's happy and safe where he is and having a good time. But hey, we're down here still, and we enjoyed him and Tim Swartz on the podcast all the time. I just loved it. So it's a Captain Beckley.
Yeah, and
Admiral Beckley, whatever.
that does remind me. I meant to ask Tim briefly. Do you have any idea, or can you even go there yet, about continuing exploring the bizarre and things like that?
Oh, I sincerely doubt if I'll continue it. It just wouldn't be the same.
Mm-hmm. It would tarnish his memory.
No, not so much that. I mean, I'm sure that he,
I mean, if you got another co-host of his caliber, which it would be hard to find one, but
it really would be. And he was so much a part of the show. His humor and just all of the knowledge that he had. Just doing the show without him, it just wouldn't feel right.
Yeah. Alan, any last words you'd like to share with us about Tim?
The incident that I referred to earlier, when Tim came out here to do that multi-day conference in Oro Valley, what he told us was that he wasn't using his own money to come out here. He had a ton of American Express frequent flyer miles that he had used up. It was like use it or lose it. And so he was going to use that to come out here and pay for his trip out here. It's also what he used to pay for the dinners that he bought all of us with. We just go to a restaurant that took American Express, and he would just give them that, and they'd run it through, and he'd sign off on the check, and that was that. The other thing, going back to his adult work days, Tim is probably the only person that I know of or knew of that could find, talk to, and have a former porn star come and talk to a UFO conference about the UFO subject. And that person was Raven De La Croix.
And
Peter, it was like, oh, sure.
Yeah. Peter, any last words about your friend Timothy Green Beckley?
Yeah, of course. You go through this life and you realize at a certain point that people are roughly divided into two groups, those who take and those who give. Some people are not generous with their time, their emotions, their material goods. Tim was a giver, and he really enjoyed, people having a good time that he had initiated. I think he should remain, among other things, as a reminder to everybody in the work, whether or not you're an established, long-time, well-known professional or coming up through the ranks, that the work that we're doing is very important, I think, singularly so. But if you get to the point where, and many of us go through periods of time, especially in the years that we start, where we want to look serious, so we are, but never forget to have a good time and to be there to facilitate others having a good time. Share what you have. Stand up for what you believe in. And I think Nancy Burns, again, kind of said it. He really was the Hunter S. Thompson of ufology. I'm reminded at the end of the hysterical fake documentary Spinal Tap, Rob Reiner is interviewing the very final drummer in the group. You know,
Right.
all their drummers die mysteriously.
Explode. Yeah.
And when I first saw the film, I thought, that looks a little like Tim after we've been out all night. You know, big black circles, bleach hair. And he says, you do have I think the line is, what's your philosophy of life? And the guy looks into the camera and says, quote unquote, have a good time all the time. And it's something to aim for. But we're all the better for having known him. He has added immeasurably to a part of ufology that would have been neglected without him. And those of us who are left will miss him.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and do our giveaway. We have 10 people in the chat. And the first giveaway is going to be the book that Tim has offered, UFO Repeaters, The Camera Never Lies. So how we do that is I am going to ask one of you, I suppose I'll ask Tim Swartz, to pick a number between 1 and 10, or 1 and 11 now. And then everyone in the chat will please put a number in just between 1 and 10. And we will go ahead and award the first giveaway to the person that either gets the number right or gets as close to the number as possible. So Tim, please pick a number between 1 and 10. And everyone in the chat, please put a number in. Okay, we have Cam has 4. Darius Munchausen has 8. Ivan Ivanovich has needs to pick again, because Cam already has 4. Keely Chow has 5. Shrimp Lightning has 2. Charlotte Jean has 10. Eli McInnes has to pick again, as well as Ivan Ivanovich, because Cam already has 4. So please, those of you that already have guessed somebody else's number, pick another one. And Ivan Ivanovich has picked 6. Pat S has 7, as from before. So we have Eli McInnes has picked number 1, and I'm just double checking to make sure. Robert, Pat S already has 7, so you'll need to pick again. And last call for Robert to pick another number. Tim, you have your number in mind?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. The number was 10.
10. All right. That makes Eli McInnes our winner. Congratulations. Woo! Very good. All right. Now we are going to do our giveaway from Peter. These inscribed UFO Experience VHS boxes, which are at this point extremely rare, of course. And let's see here. Elon McKenna says no. Charla. Darius Munchausen says Charla Jean. So let's see. Number was 10. Elon McKinnis had it. Okay, so Charla Jean had it first. So Charla Jean, congratulations, and thanks for everybody helping me to remind that. I will need you to send your mailing address to me. Right there, that's my email, gil@sunflower.com. And for Peter's giveaway, please, everyone, again, pick a number between 1 and 10. And Peter, I'd like you to go ahead and pick a number between 1 and 10. Everyone in the chat, please go ahead and enter your number for our second giveaway. Cam has 4. Pat S has 7. Keely Chow has 5. Robert Green has number 3, so Shrimp Lightning will need to pick another number. So exciting. Pat S has picked number 9. Darius Munchausen has 8. Eli McInnes has number 1. Pat S has picked 7, which he already had back here. Charlotte Jean has 10. Shrimp Lightning has picked 9, which is Pat S's number. So please pick again, Shrimp Lightning. So we have 4, 7, 5, 8, 1, 3, 9, 10. And anybody that does not have their number in, please get it in now. Last call. And Shrimp Lightning has 9. Let's see if 9 has been taken. Looks like that's a good number. Yep. Okay. Peter Robbins, what number did you pick, sir? 10. All right. So, unless I miss my guess, Charlotte Jean also wins the second giveaway. So, congratulations, Charlotte Jean. So, again, please send me your email address or your mailing address to my email, which is right here, gil@sunflower.com. And I will make sure that those are gotten to you. I want to thank everyone on the panel and everyone in the chat for doing this wonderful, remarkable memorial roundtable for Timothy Green Beckley. It's really been wonderful. I'd like to thank everyone, and it's been a lot of fun. Like Walter said, I learned a lot about Tim I didn't know, and you certainly all knew him better than I did. So It's been wonderful having you all here. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having us on.
Yes.
Thank you. And I'm sorry I was late.
That's okay. That's okay.
It won't happen again. Sorry.
But we are going to have you on an upcoming show. So we still have to work out some details on that. But Albert will be joining us as a guest for the entire show. And I'm going to sign off. Cardinal Sin, out.